Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. And now to honor America, please join in the singing of our national anthem. Representing the three-time Stanley Cup champion New Jersey Devils, Arlette.
I feel like I'm at a game. Oh my gosh. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Happy Devils Wednesday! Beer Baron, we're on live air. You got to look at the camera.
I'm aware. How many comments we've already gotten in the show didn't even start, and there's like a ton of reasons why people hate the Rangers.
A ton.
Eric's his mom getting a cigarette put out on her arm in '93 for wearing a Devils jersey. The Devils. That's a good reason to hate the Rangers.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good reasons to hate the Rangers. That's why we did a surprise podcast in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
Well, the Super Bowl's this Sunday. Yeah. So we figured tomorrow's game, Devils Rangers. I always get excited for. Notice the T-shirt. What does it say, Beer Baron? It says, Rangers suck.
That's right.
But Shorts Guy is on assignment today. He would love to join us, but we barely got this podcast off the ground.
Hey man,
the power was out. Yeah, but the power was out. Mm-hmm. It's negative Ken Danico out there, -3, and the power goes out. Yeah, JCP&L, good one. But I have problems with utility companies, Comcast, JCP&L, the basic stuff to get the podcast up on air. This is the Let's Go Devils podcast, Season 2, Episode 23, a special edition. We're broadcasting live on a Wednesday, but for a good reason. Tonight's title is, why do we hate the Rangers? And I saw a lot of the comments.
A lot of comments center around the fans, and I tend to agree. and we will be sharing some stories tonight. We have a lot of really fun things to talk about. But that right there, my man, that is like one of the biggest parts of it is the fans, and it seems like a lot of our fans are hitting it right on the nose. There's like this arrogance about most Ranger fans. I will say this: there are a few exceptions, and there are some that know hockey, and you could sit down, you could talk hockey with them, and what's up, Johnny? There's a lot of, you know, a lot of people that are like their hockey IQ is up. Like you can talk about Martin Brodeur and they'll be like, yeah, he was the greatest goaltender that ever played, and blah blah blah, and he had our number for the longest time. That's usually like the Ranger fan that you can get away with, and you can be like, all right, I'm cool with you. The only problem is those fans are far and few between, and the majority, it seems like, are these arrogant, pompous. Oh, the Rangers with a ball, with a bat. It's like, dude, you've won one cup in the last 70 years.
Beer Baron,
with walnuts, ugly.
Beer Baron, you gotta pronounce it right. It's pronounced rain, RAIN, and then jizz, GIZZ, or it could be JIZZ. So they ranges. I can't stand it when I hear that accent standing behind me, whether it's at Madison Square Garden or Prudential Center or the old Meadowlands. I just can't stand it. Ranges, and it's so obnoxious the way they pronounce their freaking name.
Johnny, what you tried to send me didn't work. The link is not it's not letting me pull anything up. Yeah, no, honestly, I agree, dude. Like, that's my biggest beef with any of these arrogant Ranger fans is their hockey IQ is little to none. You know, I'll never forget, and we'll start the stories off with this story. All right. It was right around the time that the Devils just acquired Ilya Kovalchuk. I got myself an Ilya Kovalchuk jersey, just like many of these of our Devil brethren had gotten after we got him. And I was sitting down low. I was super pumped. I had my brand new crispy Kovalchuk jersey on, and these two. Oh man! See, I'm gonna have to watch my tongue because this is gonna be a hard one to watch my tongue on.
It's gonna be hard to keep it family friendly.
These two D-bags were sitting behind me, and they're going, "Oh, Cole, nice Kovalchuk jersey, nice Kovalchuk. Oh, how much did you pay for him? How much did you pay for him?" And I turned around and I'm like, "How much did you pay for Gretzky? How much did you pay for Yager? How much did you pay for Gomez? How much?" And I'm like just riddling off all these different, all these different guys that they've paid for. And I just kept going and going and going. I'm like, and how many cups did they bring you? How many cups did Gretzky bring you? How many cups did the highest payroll in the NHL bring you? None. And I went off. And then of course, the one guy sits down. The other guy is like, "Oh, well, you overpaid for Kovalchuk." And I'm like, and I turn around, I'm like, "We probably did." I'm like, "Who cares? We probably did."
It's like you overpaid for Bobby Holik. Exactly. If it wasn't for that freaking lockout, you couldn't get out of that contract.
Yeah,
back in 2004, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
But I mean, that's a prime example of not knowing your own team. First of all, not knowing your own history and not knowing what you're talking about. Man, it's going to be hard. You might have to hit the bleep button a few times tonight.
Yeah, well. This is what I'm thinking. This is how we came up with this. I mean, we didn't know that we were doing a podcast tonight until this morning. Man. Yeah. So the other day, I was, when I look at the Devils' schedule, right? This is how it goes. It's we got Pittsburgh after the All-Star. Okay, Islanders next week. We got the Rangers on Thursday. And you get into this serious tone. Am I right? Do you like when you scout a calendar out for the games when they're being played, what's the first thing? Like your eyes will be looking at the schedule, the calendar, and then but somehow you see all the Rangers, Devils Rangers on there, right? And you're like, oh,
Hmm?
and it's almost like, where did I put my body armor? Because I'm going to the game. You get really, really, really fired up. Facebook Live, you probably understand what I'm talking about. You get really fired up. And then I started to think about it. Why do I hate the Rangers? Right? Where did this all start? Well, where did all this animosity come from? And you know what, Beer Baron? I know this sounds sad. I don't know where the hatred came from. It's almost like a family feud where, mom and your aunt are feuding and they haven't talked to each other in 20 years. And then you ask, well, what happened? And they don't really remember how it really started, but they remember everything else, afterwards. So, but I think for me, I'm one of the, I want to ask Facebook Live if anybody has the same story I have, how I started to hate the Rangers. I think I hated the Rangers first before I became a Devils fan, if that makes any sense. And the reason why is back in the day, back in the 80s, the red and green jerseys, when the Devils were losing, we didn't have cable TV. We didn't have satellite TV back then. We had only rabbit ears, where you take a coat hanger, you put it on your TV, and pray that you get a signal. So the Rangers were on Channel 9, I think, every Saturday, and they were always on the road. And I was probably 6 years old in the mid-'80s, and every time I watched them, they would lose. Constantly. Bob Froese sucks. He couldn't even... He's worse than Corey Schneider in 2018. No. That's how bad he was. He was so bad, right? So the Rangers always they were losing, and once I started to really learn how to read, probably about 7, 8 years old, I looked at a newspaper. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, New Jersey has a team. I didn't know that. And then when I saw the logo, I fell in love. And I think that was maybe in 86, 87, around that time. And then they went on that magical playoff run to get into the playoffs, mm-hmm. And make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. And that's how my Devils fandom started. But it actually started, and I credit Kelly Kissio and Bob Froese of the Rangers for stinking it up. And that's how I became that's how I honestly became
God, I can't imagine if you were a Rangers fan, we would have never become friends. That's 100% sure.
I know.
We have breaking news. There has been a trade between the New Jersey Devils and the Minnesota Wild.
Really? Are you serious?
I'm dead serious, yeah.
Okay.
The Devils have acquired, get ready for this, Ryan Suter.
No,
I'm kidding. No, the Devils have acquired defenseman Ryan Murphy from the Wild for Michael Kapla. So just a minor deal. Nothing too serious, but it is a trade. It is something. It means Ray Shero is actually alive. And I swear to God, and I said this to you after that Devils-Penguins game, that the Devils are told to tank unless they're playing the Penguins or the Rangers. So don't be surprised if you get a good game out of the boys tomorrow night, or at least we can hope for that. But I swear, it's like they play the Penguins, and it's like the team comes alive, and there's like a whole different aspect from of this team. Yeah, exactly, a blockbuster. But it could be the precursor of things to come. It could be just Ray Shero testing out the waters. It could be establishing a relationship with Minnesota, who is, I believe, pretty close to the cap. Maybe he's going to try and get Dumba out of there, or however you say his name. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, it's just listen. The trade deadline's February 25th. There's a lot of things that could be moved. I saw an article today, and I didn't really get a chance to read it, but I wanted to pass it to you, or kind of pass this notion over to you, and of course to our Facebook friends and everybody else out there listening. Is the possibility of Blake Coleman being traded. You would be able to get quite a lot back for him. I don't want him to be traded. He's 27 years old. He's on a 30-goal pace right now, which is pretty damn impressive considering he scored, 14 goals last year. But there's somebody floated this out there. Like, what do you think? What do you think the possibilities of Coleman getting traded, and what could we get back in return? That's a big.
His stock is up.
His stock is way up.
It is
way up.
Like, the pickle juice thing. I mean, he's a fan favorite with that whole pickle juice thing last season.
It's 94. Never ever again.
Yeah. But we didn't really have a pre-show meeting because there was no power. There was no power before, but we have Nick Villano coming on in a few minutes, and just in time, talk about that quote unquote big trade that just happened.
Yes, it's funny because going back to the whole reason why we hit the Rangers. Remember last year when the Devils acquired Grabner, and there were a lot of people that were like, "Oh my God!" See, the thing that just is, as much as you hate the Rangers, you need them to exist because you need that team to hate. Do you know what I mean? Like it makes. It's like rooting for the good and the bad, right? You need, Thanos needs to be around for the Avengers to exist. That kind of, theory in life. And the Rangers need to suck so bad and be terrible, and just their fans need to be so douchey for us to be the good guys. So, I mean, that's how the world balances itself out. There's always going to be a yin to the yang, right? So we're the good, they're the bad. But last year when that trade happened, what's sad to me is that, the coverage around the area is not what it should be for the NHL or for our local teams. And it was just kind of like glazed over. But that was such a huge deal. The fact that Shiro made a deal with the Rangers was like, oh, whoa, wait, what? Like, you made a deal with who? You know what I mean? Like, it was to me, it was like I don't know. I thought even though it was like a minor deal and it wasn't like a crazy deal, it's still something that happened between the two clubs that you're like, wow, normally you don't see that type of thing happen. So I don't know. That was crazy. To me, that was crazy.
Well, it's crazy because in Marty Brodeur's book, Beyond the Crease, there's a quote in there. There's a quote in there that says, I hate the Rangers. And so does Lou, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. I don't know the exact words. And that actually probably the hatred in terms of management, if I'm not mistaken, started from John McMullen, the original owner. I mean, he hated the Rangers. Think about when the Devils moved to New Jersey. Territorial rights and all that. And and what I can't stand, and I'll tell you what I can't stand about Ranger fans, right? You can't even sell out your own building during the Stanley Cup Finals, which is completely BS, which is totally BS. And then on WFAN, you hear these freaking Ranger fans calling in Joe Beningo, and it's like, yeah, back in 2000, I went to Game 2. I just walked up to the box office and just got myself 2 tickets to see the Stanley Cup Finals, even though I'm a Ranger fan. Which is complete BS. There is no way you just went into the Meadowlands box office and just got 2 random tickets while everybody else outside has a wristband. Somehow you could just waltz in. Back then security was so tight during Stanley Cup Finals where you had to wait online and the line would go a long way. And then there was a lottery pick. There was a lottery pick to just have the opportunity to pick up, some of the tickets.
I don't know. I have a really funny story about that too, but I'll tell you that in a second. But I do want to reply to Winnie, who says that she lost interest in hockey until the Devils came to New Jersey, and have been a Devils fan ever since. That's an awesome story. Thank you for sharing that, Winnie. Jason Collins says, "Yeah, I disagree with the as a Devils fan, the Rangers were elite from 2013 to 2016." I agree to that to an extent. They were elite. They did make it to Eastern Conference Finals and then to the Stanley Cup Finals. Thank God the Kings beat them, because that would have been a whole nother thing if the Kings somehow lost to the Rangers in the Stanley Cup Finals after the year after beating the Devils, or 2 years after, whenever the heck it was, after beating the Devils in the Stanley Cup Finals. That would have been a nightmare, an absolute nightmare, because that would have been something that none of us would have been able to live down. To be honest with you, like, going back to where it all stems from, like, my hatred for the Rangers came about, I don't know, just being a Devils fan, and just being always kind of like looked down at or talked down to by, Ranger fans and stuff like that. And then when 1994 happened and Mateau scored that goal, that was when the hatred really sank in. And it was one of those crushing defeats as a kid, and you're watching your team lose, and it was like, and I remember to this day where I was in my bedroom watching a game, and I'm like watching the Rangers celebrate, and everybody's jumping up and down, and Mark Messier, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And Mateau, oh my God, it gives me nightmares. It's still, every time I hear that call, it makes my stomach just churn. But regardless, we went on to establish a culture in this team over the next couple of years, and the next couple of, a decade and a half or whatever, of just winning. And then, the Rangers haven't done anything since 1994. So you would think that it wouldn't bother us as much. But I don't know. It's just one of those teams that just they get under your skin. The fans get under your skin. You go to a Devils game and they're like playing Winnipeg, and there's still a Ranger fan walking around in a Rangers jersey. It's like, oh, and it's got something to say. And it's like, dude, you're only here because you literally can't buy a ticket to MSG. So that's why you want to just come watch hockey. Just come watch hockey and shut your big fat mouth. That's all you have to do. Just watch the game.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm just wonder if Ranger fans are really hockey fans. There are good people. I have a couple friends that are good hockey people that are Rangers fans that know their stuff. But you wonder are they there to watch a hockey game, or are they there to watch the Rangers? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
It seems like they're not there to watch hockey. They're actually there to watch to watch the Rangers. Like, it's like everything revolves around the Rangers. Anyway, sorry, I'm just stalling right here because I'm about to cue up Nick Villano. He does the State of the Fan Address segment every Sunday.
Vinny said he can't stand it either.
Yeah. So, but Nick's been listening in, and we have him on the Bobby's Auto Care hotline. Nick, why do you hate the Rangers?
Well, I have a long history of hating the Rangers. I actually have a couple funny stories about hating the Rangers. I'll start with this one. I broke up with a girlfriend at a Rangers-Devils game once. Now, that's the story. She's a Rangers fan. I was a Devils fan. Sorry. You try, when you're in love, you try to get over these things. But then we went to a game, and that was just the end of that. So I have a long-standing hatred of the Rangers. I mean,
Nick,
it started when I was a
Nick, I got to interrupt.
Oh, sorry.
No, I got to interrupt, and I have to just say this: inter-team dating never works.
Never.
It never works. It may work in the beginning because you're in the honeymoon phase. Then you realize why you hate that team. Because in the end, I think I dated a Flyer fan once. That only lasted like 2 days. So just to let you know. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're fine. I mean, I definitely understand. I dated actually 2 Rangers fans in my lifetime, and they both just it was just both disasters, and I'm going to blame the entire thing on the Rangers Devils rivalry.
Exactly. Like a sensible man would.
But I mean, my hatred for the Rangers goes it goes far back because, the reason why, I guess it goes back to why I'm a Devils fan. I'm a Devils fan because I was born and raised in New Jersey, and they're really Jersey's only team. I mean, obviously there's the Red Bulls, but I always hated the Giants and the Jets because they played in New Jersey and named themselves New York. You're not a New York team, you're a New Jersey team. Well, the Devils didn't do that. So that's kind of the reason why, when I was a younger Nick, before I was writing on the internet and making people mad, I grew up and I latched onto the Devils. It was early, but they already had Brodeur, so it was probably about like 93, I would say. But I mean, the second that you start to love the Devils, right behind that is hating the Rangers. It's literally like it takes hours before you're like, oh, my favorite team is now the Devils. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to hate this red, white, and blue team that always seems to make us mad. And then it kind of goes through. I remember despising Sean Avery and kind of wanting him to fall in a sinkhole of some kind, kind of going away completely. So I definitely remember that. But my favorite memory of the Rangers and Devils is probably most people's favorite memory of the Rangers and Devils. It's the Henrique It's Over. Mm-hmm. But mine was a little bit different because my current fiance, it was when we first started, we were a couple months in, but we were going home to see her friends. And it was just like, we planned this months in advance. And it just happened to fall on the day of the Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals. So I was like, well, and she's a big sports fan, so she kind of got it, but she wasn't thrilled that I was like, well, and then 2012, it was before you could really stream things online. You like streaming through your phone was, I had a BlackBerry. Like, we were lucky that we had BBM Messenger. So I had to find online, I had to find the NHL radio stream. So I sat there and I made her listen to it. And then, of course, it goes into double overtime. So it was about a 5-hour broadcast. And the second we pulled up to our location, Henrik scored the goal. And I just walked into this bar with my hands held high. Like, I just won the Stanley Cup. And it was probably the happiest I've been with any sports thing ever.
That entire game, I was at that game, and that entire game was insane from the moment the puck dropped until Henrik scored that goal. And when he scored that goal, I mean, I've felt with the whole stadium just shaking, and I remember just screaming, we're going crazy. I damn near broke my leg because my cousin who ran to the bathroom was running back into the aisle that I was standing in, and he like tackled me, and I put my foot in between the seat in front of me and the cement block and just fell straight over top of the seat. But to this day, I think it was because I had a few beers that I didn't break my leg. But I've never experienced anything so exhilarating. And 100%, if it was another team, I would have been that exciting or that excited. But the fact that it was the Rangers, it was like this massive release in the entire building. Like every fan in that building was. Someone was like, we're all getting laid. And we're like, you got it.
Hey, Beer Baron and Nick, I actually invited Jim Brewer to a Devils Rangers game. I didn't think it was going to be Game 6 at 2012 Stanley Cup Finals. And beforehand, you see, I'm going to put this in front of the camera, this Rangers suck confetti that I have here in a Ziploc bag. Mm-hmm. I told Jim I'm going to find some mules. And he's like, what do you mean mules? And I was handing these things out to any Devils fan that was walking into the Prudential Center, like one by like at least 50 of these. And then when Henrique scored it, I told everyone, don't throw it unless you're sure we're gonna win. Don't because we were getting in trouble. Yeah, we were getting in trouble with security with these earlier in the series, and yeah, it was like a blizzard of Ranger suck confetti when Henrique scored, and it was like going on for about 2 or 3 minutes. Everybody had him, and it was just throwing it up in the air, this and that. Another thing that we did back in 2006. Do you guys remember Beach Ball Day, Game 1, 2006? I was on this message. I was on this message board, devilsrule.com, and we said, "Hey, it's Beach Ball Day. Everybody go out, buy a beach ball, and we'll take collection in the parking lot where we're tailgating in the Meadowlands." I think I bought 300 beach balls because at Walmart they were on sale. It's like April, right? And they just put the beach balls, up there. It's like 55 cents. I think I just bought the entire, the entire rack of beach balls at 2 or 3 Walmarts. But everybody else was doing it. So we had all these beach balls. So we said, okay, during warm-ups, we're just going to blow them up and just let it go. I have a video somewhere. There must have been at least 60 to 70 beach balls going at once, right when both of the teams were going out in the crowd. And Peter Sikora almost tripped on it coming out. He was on the Rangers coming out from the locker room, right in front of us. So, but those are one of my, fun Devils Rangers stories.
So before the season started, I wrote probably my favorite article that I ever got to write for Pucks and Pitchforks. And you just reminded me of you with your Peter Sikora comment, but it was the 5 Devils players who signed massive contracts with the Rangers and then just flopped. And it was just a great walk down memory lane of the Scott Gomez's of the world and the Bobby Ho Leaks, and those great Devils players who were probably some of the worst Rangers players that they've had in their history. Like Scott Gomez signed that massive contract with New York, and he was just. Is he the worst signing of the 21st century? I can't really think of somebody who's worse, like somebody who had an entire website dedicated to whether or not to score a goal, and it's almost always no. So, they got lucky because the Montreal Canadiens took it from them, but that was still probably the worst contract signed in the 21st century, I'd say.
Do you think? What about Corey Schneider?
Corey Schneider was great for the first 2 years of it. Scott Gomez was literally, he walked in the door, was a trash player, and he didn't get hurt, so they couldn't even replace him with anybody. They just had to keep playing him every night.
Yeah.
It's funny because that I don't know if you're listening earlier, but that harkens to what I was saying before. When the Devils first signed Kovalchuk, and I got this brand new Kovalchuk jersey, and these 2 Ranger fans sitting behind me were like, "Oh, how much did you pay for him?" and blah blah blah. And I've said before, I rattled off every single Ranger that I could name that they overpaid for. I've forgotten Lindros that was on that list too, but I do have to ask you a question about the current situation of the team. The Devils have made a slight trade, and that was to acquire Ryan Murphy from the Minnesota Wild for Michael Kapla. Now, do you know anything about this trade, or is this? I know it just kind of went through not too long ago.
Yeah, I literally just wrote something on it right before I kind of went on with you guys, so I know enough to talk about it. So, do you want to know like the scouting report on this guy, or
yeah,
what are
great.
That you want to know? Yeah, so basically, this guy, he came into the league. I actually wrote an article that called him the most intriguing prospect of the 2011 draft. And I was like, huh. And they were talking about the Ryan Stromes and a couple of the other intriguing guys in that draft, but they said this guy has all the upside in the world. He's just a one-trick pony, but he's the best at this one trick. So what he is he's an offensive defenseman. He could pass the puck really well. He used to have a really good shot. Then he got injured in Kitchener in about 2013. Kitchener's his junior team in the OHL, the Kitchener Rangers. He came back the next year to Kitchener, which is weird for a first-round pick to spend 2 more years in juniors after that. But he went there. He was an overager. He became captain, and then he was trash. I don't know if I don't know if the injury had something to do with it, but he just wasn't the same player. So the Carolina Hurricanes, who drafted him, brought him to the NHL, and he was fine the first season. He played 48 games, and his first season was, I think, his 13-14. He got a decent amount of points. Then they kind of thought he was going to be like, one of their next guys in the defense that they were going to build around, which is what happens when they spent the first round pick, 12th overall on this guy. He was picked higher than McLeod, and Devils fans are ready to give up on McLeod after 2 years. So this guy is
not me.
7 years as 12th overall. So eventually what happened is it just didn't work out. And he was a throw-in on the trade that sent Eddie Lack from the Carolina Hurricanes to the Calgary Flames. And they didn't even, I think he didn't, so they just didn't resign him. They didn't give him a qualifying offer at the end of the season. He ended up going to Minnesota. Last year, Minnesota was trying to work him into the lineup, but he's kind of a sieve on the defensive end. Like, he just doesn't have that skill. And he's 5'11", 181 pounds. I don't know if you know this, but if I tell you 5'11", 181 pounds Devils defenseman, you're probably going to think of Will Butcher. It sounds like we already have this guy. So I get the trade when you tell me that we gave up Mike Kapla, who's probably a guy who's not really ever going to make the NHL roster, and if he does, it's because everybody's injured. Oh, wait, let me check the roster. Yeah, everybody's injured. But we got a guy who was a first-round pick. He has offensive skill. The only thing I can think of is this is Will Butcher insurance if the trade negotiations don't go well and they want to trade him in the offseason, but he's just not the same guy. I think there's a disconnect for me because not only do you have Butcher, but you also have Igor Yakovlev, who's also this guy. He's, Yakovlev's a little bit bigger, which, if you ask me, is better. I think he's a couple inches taller and he's a couple pounds heavier. But when you tell me 5'11", 181 pounds, I'm thinking like, all right, so he's going to be a decent third line winger, and then you tell me he's a defenseman, I'm like, oh no. So that's I'm not on board with this trade, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those ones where it came up on the phone, and I looked at it, and I kind of read deeper into it, and I came away with kind of like the similar thought process where it didn't make much sense, and it was like, are they trying to just bring somebody in so they can facilitate a trade later? Like, what the hell are they trying to do? Because like you said, we already have a guy like this, and I don't know. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just, to me, it just seems like it's one of those, maybe it's as Shiro, testing the market. Is he trying to establish a relationship with Minnesota? Who knows? Who knows? But it just didn't really make a ton of sense. But like I said, where you pointed out, you're sending away Kapla, who probably will never make the NHL level with the Devils at least. And unfortunately, yeah, and by the way, Sami Vatanen now out with a concussion. Add that one to the list. And it just seems like we're the walking wounded nowadays. So I don't know. It's a move. It shows Shiro's alive. I guess there's that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that Shiro's breathing because I was worried that we haven't seen him. He hasn't made a move. I mean, are they putting a Shiro robot out there just to answer questions? Because
like weekend at Bernie's.
He just hasn't made any move. He's literally. I don't know if any other team is this, but he hasn't made a trade all season before this one. There was 0 trades. Like, teams have been making like little small moves, little roster acquisitions, but the Devils just kind of been standing here. And like, arguably after that first month, this team needed to move more than anybody because they just needed a message sent. They just never really did it. They just kept going. They kept hoping that basically one of these goalies would figure it out. It just never worked out. And now it's too late because not only is even if Kincaid finds the Kincaid of last year, now you got Sami Vatanen out. And I don't know when Sami Vatanen's coming back because this is the same exact situation. It's about the same timetable, of Marcus Johansson from last year, and I'm a little confused of why people aren't talking about it as much as they were talking about Marcus Johansson last year. Maybe because Marcus Johansson took a vicious hit from Brant Marchand, and this one was, it kind of seemed like it was just Derek Brassard put himself in the wrong place at the wrong time. But I think that this is a big deal, and I think we might not see, and this is speculation, and this is early, but 2 concussions in 10 months, we might not see Vatanen for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me either. And I think a lot of the attention was drawn to the Johansson situation because of who he elbowed him. You know what I mean? Like, maybe because, like you said, Brassard didn't really, it didn't seem like he intentionally at least did it. But I don't know. If we lose him for the rest of the year, and there's talk about possibly shelving Taylor Hall for the rest of the year. And I know Hines said, that's kind of out of the question. And there is no timetable and blah, blah, blah. At this point, it's getting to the point where he's not coming to practice. He's not practicing. He was at a meet and greet recently, and that was like the first time anybody's seen him alive. It's like, Shiro's just collecting all the best players on the team and just like sucking them into a back room and just saying, boys, we need to just hold this tank together. Hold this tank together until we can get down to the end of the season.
I mean, if you're going to tank, this is the way to do it, right? Like, every time that Devils start playing well, you're like, no. You got a cut in your face? No, you don't. You got a concussion. Like, because there was no talk of concussion. There was none. There was, when he was held out of practice yesterday, Amanda Stein came out and said it was for the cut. So we were talking about it, and we were just thinking that, well, it just must be like they don't want to break the stitches. They're just trying to let it heal for another night. They have an extra day off. He's Sami Vatanen. He's been in this league for about, I think it's 6 years. So he doesn't really need one practice, and he played decently well against the Penguins, and they had a week off. They had a lot of practice, I just thought that they just didn't need him.
Mm-hmm.
And then out of the blue, concussion, you're like, and, I looked at it, and I actually saw it pretty late. I saw it like about 2.5 hours after it came out, just because I saw that practice happened. I saw that he wasn't practicing. I thought that was done for the news of the day. Taylor Hall's not practicing. Joey Anderson's not practicing. Okay, well, news is done. So I go on Twitter just to kind of see what everybody's talking about. I'm like, whoa, a concussion? Like, where did this come from? And then I wrote about it, and I saw that. I said that this is the kind of move that's going to have repercussions. Like, this changes the way the Devils are going to look at the rest of the season. This changes the way the Devils are going to go about their offseason. This changes the way they're going to negotiate with Sami Vatanen. This changes the way they're going to go after defensemen, because now they might need to get 2 instead of just 1. This changes the way they do the trade deadline, because maybe now they don't want to trade Ben Lovejoy because they don't want to be stuck with Marco Mueller and Igor Yakovlev the entire season and Steve Santini in the lineup every night.
Yeah.
So this changes a lot. This might put them in a situation like they were with John Moore last year, where they feel like they're stuck keeping him when it would have been much more valuable to the future of the franchise moving on.
So let me ask you this. Does a player like Blake Coleman, there was kind of some talk about it on the old interwebs today, that he could possibly be a player moved. Do you see that happening?
That doesn't make sense. He's the kind of, if Ray Shero is telling the truth and he wants to actually go after a cup run, what are you going to get for Blake Coleman? Like, you're not going to get a star player back for him, so why wouldn't you, a guy who's getting 20 goals, he's making, under $2 million a year, why would you get rid of that guy? It just doesn't seem like the cost reward of that move makes no sense to me. He wasn't it's not like he was a first round pick who is finally living up to his status. He's a 26 or 27-year-old guy who's come out of nowhere and is playing really well. Mm-hmm. But I feel like when you've looked in the past of guys who've done that, they don't get a lot in the trade market. So, he's just much more valuable on the Devils than he is as a trade asset. I feel like with that, it's just fans looking at this roster, realizing that our trade assets are pretty nil. It's kind of down because I was looking at it because it's trade season. So I'm trying to figure out, strategies and all that for how I'm going to do my trade content. I'm like, okay, so the Devils are definitely going to make Marcus Johansson, Ben Lovejoy, and Keith Kincaid available. They'll probably, more than likely, make Brian Boyle available, but they might want to re-sign him. I'm not sure. That's the one guy I'm kind of iffy about. Then I look at everybody else, and I'm like, well, who are, it's Igor Yakovlev, who has not really a lot of value right now. And then it's Mirko Mueller, who has not really a lot of value right now. And then it's, it's people like, it's people who were kind of, we thought were going to be the core of this team, like Will Butcher. Like, are you going to move him? Because maybe he's not what you thought he was this season. Maybe you thought his rookie season was a fluke, which I don't. I think it's just a sophomore slump, and that's not making a big deal out of it. But either way, I feel like the trade assets are just not. There's just not a lot of them, and I feel like the fans are kind of making things, trying to make things bigger than they are, just so the Devils could be more a part of this trade season, because this is really all they have to look forward to now.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. I mean, you nailed it.
Nick, before we let you go, I have a question for you, and this is kind of a hypothetical from a Devils fan. Let me just ask you this question. Let's play a scenario where it's the last game of the season. You're playing the Rangers. It's in overtime. If you win, you lose your chance for a top 3 draft pick. If you lose, you're guaranteed to be in that pool and most likely get the first overall. What would you like the Devils to do?
I pull my goalie.
Now the big question is that where are the Rangers in this? Are the Rangers winning their in, or are the Rangers also out of it completely?
Or maybe let's say the Rangers are also competing for the top 3 picks.
Oh, well, if you're both competing for the top 3, you can't let the Rangers get the top 3 pick.
But would you lose to get it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'd say I'd put 3 skaters out on the ice and pull the goalie.
Exactly.
That was the case. I'd shoot it into my own net. Like me, physically. I would go down there, put on a Devils uniform, and throw it in the own net. Like, just kind of run away and get around. Like,
I call the e-bug and put him in.
Yeah, like, is Scott Foster available? Because we could use another goalie. Like, throw him in there. I don't care. Do whatever you can. Just tank that. Now, the situation where I would say the other way is if, say, the Rangers win and they're into the playoffs, and the Devils were lose and they're in the top 3 of the draft. I'm sorry, that
you beat the Rangers.
Knocking the Rangers out of the playoffs is going to feel so much better for so much longer, and I'm going to have a lot of things to say than taking a flyer on getting the 5th pick instead of a 3rd pick.
I agree.
Wow. Well, very good, Nick. Thanks for coming on a Wednesday night. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're expanding now. We're making this bigger. Thanks, guys.
Definitely. That's Nick Villano of the Pucks and Pitchforks at Pitchfork Puck. He does a State of the Fan address. Well, I think that was a little bit of a State of the Fan address, wasn't it? I mean,
what I love. What I love about Nick coming on and doing this is, like, we got to talk about the reason why he hates the Rangers, and then we get a lot of current events of, like, what's going on with the Devils, because he definitely has his finger on the pulse way more than most people that we talk to or know. And it's awesome because it gives us an opportunity to kind of hear, what's going on. And especially, perfect example is talking about that trade that the Devils made today. On the surface, it's like, hey, we got a defenseman somebody else that we can throw into the system. But then the way that Nick breaks it down and kind of explained it, it's like, oh, maybe it's just like it doesn't make too much sense, and it is like a weird kind of transition. So, yeah, I listen, not to keep going back and talking about the same things over and over and over again, but this team is now in a situation where he nailed it on the head. Like if Sammy Vatanin's out for an extended period of time, this could change a lot for the Devils. This could change a lot of what's going to happen between now and the 25th. This could change what's going to happen now between the end of the year. It's crazy to think, man. It's crazy. You look at this team, and I saw an article that Yakovlev was out to dinner with Bobrovsky and Panarin, and somebody made the joke like, "Oh, that's why the Devils signed him, is so he could recruit these guys." But it's interesting. It's interesting to see what this team looks like now, and what it's going to look like, come October 5th or 6th or whatever the hell the opening day is next year.
It should be interesting, but you know what? It's also exposing. It's exposing that. Obviously they didn't spend money, but it's exposing that the Devils have no depth. They have no depth. I mean.
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. I'm still confused of why they wouldn't bring up Mikey McLeod and give him more of a chance.
Because you know what? You know why?
Hold on. Christopher Jacobs has a question for us. How do you feel about moving Andy Green? He's getting older, clear more cap space, and maybe a contender could use a veteran D-man like that. I think he has a no trade clause, which would be the biggest snafu. And you don't really hear about captains being traded, but in a world where that would happen, and if you could move Andy Green, I think Andy Green's an important part of this team in the sense that if he didn't have to log in top D-man minutes, if he was in one of the lower, the lower pairings and didn't have to like put in so much time, I think it would be great. But you guys have to, look at some more of the stats. You got to look a little bit deeper. It's easy to kind of get on guys. I remember when Martin was one of our defensemen, and everybody used to like hate on him. Be like, oh, he's terrible. Get rid of him. And what does he do? He goes to, the Pittsburgh Penguins and wins a couple of cups. Honestly, it's Andy Green is a better defenseman than he's given credit for. And some of the things that he does, I don't know. I just think we shouldn't give up on him. But if you're going to sell him away, if you're able to get rid of him, send him to a contender. You get like a 3rd round pick for him or a 4th round pick for him or something like that.
So I just want to thank everyone for entering our contest. We're supposed to be giving out free giveaways. Beer Baron, we didn't have our pre-show meeting because we didn't have the power. So for the Rangers Suck Confetti, I was reading through these comments and then I lost it. David Decker gets some Rangers Suck Confetti.
Ooh, all right.
Have to contact him. Now, these Rangers Suck Confetti may be given out at a certain pre-game viewing party that we'll be doing.
That's right.
But I'm not going to give out the date yet. But I think you got a clue.
Well,
it's probably going to be Devils Rangers.
Yeah.
I
thought we were talking about the dates of that.
No, we may have. But there is the March 2nd date at Mother's Ale House.
That's
right. And we'll announce tomorrow who's going to be our guest of honor. Also, do you like this Rangers Suck t-shirt? This is an old school one.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's old school. It's simple. I think we have a couple Rangers Suck t-shirts, and I'm just looking through here because we have to verify some of these entries. Winnie Emery Anderegg.
Mm-hmm.
You see that story? Did you read that story?
I did. It's an awesome story.
Yes. She gets some Rangers Suck confetti and a Rangers Suck T-shirt, so she can. Because her husband is a 40-year-plus Ranger fan, she can wear it around the house.
There you go.
Yep. Why don't you give one out, dear Baron?
Well, I apologize for yawning. It's been a long day. I didn't get a chance to read it aloud because it was extremely long, but I do want to say that I would give mine to our good friend Johnny. I have to say that he wrote like a 3-page essay, and just kind of glancing through it in the beginning of the show when he sent it to me on direct message, it's very good. It's very well written. I could read an excerpt if you would like me to. If I can bring it up on my old phone here. Let's see.
Sure.
All right, never mind. It's going to take too long. But I will prove that I have. You can't even really see it on my phone, but it takes up my phone. Yeah, so it looks all white. But he did a great job, and I'm going to read this after I get off the air. But one of our good fans there, so he gets my nod for the Rangers Suck T-shirt.
So I got another Devils Rangers story that got me in trouble as a kid.
Okay.
Do you remember the 1992 Devils Rangers playoff series? Remember the line brawl? Not line brawl. The bench brawl. Scott Stevens, Ty Domi, that thing. I was in 8th grade that year. And, it just dawned on me because there was some things going on where it brought up some old memories. Back in 8th grade, I believe that series was played sometime in mid-April. And the state of New Jersey instituted this thing where you take an 8th grade warning test. It's kind of like the CAT test. Remember them?
Yeah. Park nowadays.
Yeah. So
by the way, I'm having Johnny send you a message about the shirt.
Okay. So we had to take some standardized testing, but that was during the week of Devils Rangers first playoff series, right? So as an 8th grader, all I could do, I was so distracted by that series, and I don't know, I maybe finished the test in 15 minutes each section, just so I can draw like Scott Stevens on a piece of paper. I basically blew off the test, right? And this is 8th grade. And I got decent grades in 8th grade. I think I was getting A's and B's or whatever. What happened was, if you fail those tests, and I failed the reading section by 3 points and the writing section by 1 point, when I got to high school, the 9th grade, the principal told my parents that I had to take really remedial classes. I couldn't even start 9th grade, and then my parents got in a big fight with her, and then they pulled me out of the public school system, and I was fortunate enough to go to a private school, this and that, all because of the Devils Rangers series, because I kind of blew off that test. And you're a teacher, you can understand. And it's not like I bombed it to the point, but the one thing, and it changed my life, the one thing the principal told my parents, and I still remember this day what my mother said. She said, "Your kid will never amount to anything."
Wow.
That's some pretty heavy stuff, but it changed my life. And then I thought, well, why did I blow off that test It's because I didn't think about the test. I just wanted to think about Devils, Rangers, Scott Stevens, this and that. And I remember home economics class. I stole or I long-term leased, a red piece of cloth, and I put "Let's Go Devils" and I hung it in the cafeteria, and I got like 10 demerits for that. But yeah, but just going over old stories. But
Hey, we ship to Europe, right?
Do we?
Yeah.
I don't know. Are there any tariffs we have to pay?
I don't know. We might have to ship that shirt to Europe, apparently. Johnny, you reached out to Sam, and you guys figure it out. Yeah, dude, I was told by a guidance counselor when I was in high school or not high school. Was it high school? Maybe it was high school. That's how much I paid attention. I was told by a guidance counselor that I was going to be flipping burgers for the rest of my life. So,
are you serious?
There's that.
Really?
Yeah. I remember I called 101.5 about that. It's a long story too, but here I am, a teacher. So, you win some, you lose some.
You know what? Let me tell you something. I know these teachers and principals and guidance counselors. They have a hard job, but honestly, stop predicting the future.
Yeah, you should not say things like detrimental to children, especially because they're whatever. Well, I'm not going to get into this. Whatever. Anyways,
but just here's the point. Look at us now. We got our own Let's Go Devils podcast. Where are they?
So
yeah, exactly. They were probably closet Ranger fans too, and just wanted to bust on us. Probably. That's what I like to say.
Bauman. I knew you would remember that, Bauman. My buddy Bauman, my buddy that just said it was funny. We were driving around in his car, and we are talking about that story. And when, for whatever reason, we had 101.5 on his radio, and I was like, "Pull over. We should try and call them up." It was like 10:30 at night or something like that. So we called up 101.5, and they took me on the air, and I told my story about my guidance counselor told me I was going to flip burgers. And then it became a weird thing. Like him and I used to call 101.5 all the time. It was hilarious.
You're going to be Burger Baron from now on.
Dude, that just brought back such good memories.
Oh man. I'll talk to you off air about that one because honestly, it's like whatever. But I think we're going to close the podcast.
Yes, it's time to go to sleep. I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I'm exhausted too. I'd like to thank everybody that joined in. Big game tomorrow, but that's I want to thank Nick Villano as well. But hey, it brought back old memories. But
yeah, good, bad, and indifferent.
But you know what? When dealing with Ranger fans, just remember one thing, folks. They're all talk. They're all talk. I think that's the cue.
That is the cue. That is the cue.
Well, big game tomorrow. Till next time, let's go Devils.